about what all sir is going to deliberate upon, and then I'll hand over to Dean sir for welcoming all the guests. For the purpose of better connectivity, I'm just switching off my video, and I'll just give a brief introductory note.
Okay.
We are discussing role of IPR in economic growth. IPRs play a significant role in encouraging innovation, product development, technical change to help in the economic growth. IP plays a prominent role in economic growth process through different channels. That is international trade, foreign direct investment, licensing, research and development are few to mention. Intellectual property has potential to increase growth of economy and faster beneficial change, thereby by improving developmental prospects. The development of IP over the years has invariably brought an upsurge in the outlook of nations towards the aspect of socio-economic growth. Present era of globalization has ushered a new revolution, and it may be stated that we are seeing an era of knowledge economy. The significance of IPR in economic growth differs across countries and depends on twofold things. Firstly, it depends on the amount of resources countries devote to creating intellectual aspects, as well as the amount of protected knowledge and information used in production and consumption. Hence, protection of IPR is widely
an important role in the economic growth of a nation. If we see all top economies of the world, we find the protection of IPR is one of the important area of the regimes. And if we say the economic development of country is directly proportional to the IPR protection regime, it will not be overstatement. But the developing countries face a very difficult situation in this regard. Many a times, the developing country regimes are found lacking in the spirit and intent in ensuring IPR protections. If we see the example of India, we find many a times that IPR are not protected so well. So we can buy a book of any author at traffic red lights. We can go to Nehru Place and other markets and buy things at a throwaway price. So somehow, especially developing economies are not respected in the field of IPR production. This is not a good scene, because if IPRs are not protected, then obviously people will not be going for research and development of various things. So we subsequently we have to understand that IPRs are very and they are sine qua non to any economic development countries, and they somehow ensure that poor countries, they are not out of the web of this regimes of rich countries, Western world. So there is a big issue, but anyhow, we have to ensure that IPRs are respected to ensure growth of a nation. Today I was reading a news item that as we know, during lockdown, this newspapers are not distributed to home, and they are facing a lot of issues because they are not getting ad revenue also, because ad revenue is one of the main source of income for these newspapers. So what people are doing, they are downloading their PDF and they are circulating on WhatsApp. So this is also not legal, because through this newspaper industry is also losing a lot of money. So sometimes social media also becomes a platform wherein people circulate whatever they want. So I am sure I know Mr. Raghavanji personally. He is a very hardworking and sincere official, and he is one of the top intellectual property right luminary of the country, and he has vast knowledge on IPRs. So during this webinar and subsequently during question and answer session, he will certainly answer many of the queries of all of us. So with these words, I, on my personal behalf and on behalf of the management, faculty, non-teaching staff, participants and students, extend a very warm welcome to the distinguished speaker and the participants. Thank you very much, sir.
Sir, over to you, please, sir. You may
Yeah,
start, sir. Yes.
yeah. Thank you, Lipika ji. And I would like to thank Professor Pradeep Kulshestra, Dean of Law School, Sharda University, for inviting me to speak on very relevant and important topic, the role of intellectual property rights in economic growth, challenges and prospects. I would like to thank Dr. Lipika Sharma, Assistant Professor of Law School, facilitating this platform so that I can attend this and then speak to all of you. So once again, good evening to all of you. Namaskar. So as Professor Kulshestra said, intellectual property rights is key to the economic growth of any country. This was recognized when World Trade Organization negotiations draft were discussed, and finally the Marrakesh Agreement, which paved the way for a bouquet of agreements included in the World Trade Organization's creation. One of the agreement was trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. So trade and commerce are inextricably interlinked with the intellectual property rights, whether it is industrial property rights like patents, trademarks, designs, geographical indications, and the semiconductor layout of designs, and the trade secrets, and the other part of intellectual property rights like copyrights and related rights. So every day we are seeing every product, whether it is the television. Morning you get up with looking at your mobile telephone, smartphone, about your messages you are getting, whether WhatsApp messages or email messages. So it is an intellectual property for this. So array of intellectual property rights are associated with one product, the smartphone you're holding. The patents and bouquet of patent protections, where there's no standard essential patents involved in creation of one device, and various licenses involved in that, cross licenses involved in that, and then in the protection of the brand of the smartphone, the brand name of the smartphone, whether it is Apple, Samsung, or any other famous brand name of that mobile telephone, and the very design of the telephone, and also the various streamings you do. There are copyright protection for those videos and films, and the various photographs you access or you share. Everything is related to commerce, trade, and that's so. And these industries and the various television channels you access legally, I'm talking about legally with subscription that you are accessing, the COVID has forced many people to subscribe to various streaming websites like Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, which are giving the legal entertainment for us by making us to watch films and various serials, Netflix episodes of various programs. So an entire industry is film industry, the creative industry, television industry, still making a lot of moolah in this restricted lockdown environment posed by us due to the spread of coronavirus. So it is contributing to economic growth, intellectual property rights. Now we are talking about a lot of research into innovation and invention, creation of vaccines to fight COVID, and reduction of the COVID attack and already infected people. So medicines are being discovered. So yesterday only there was a claim that the Gilead multinational pharma company has come out with a medicine called Remdesivir. So two tests have been done in US that it has a therapeutic effect in improving the condition of the COVID patients and then decreasing the threat of it has posed to the life of those patients. And a vaccine is yet to be discovered, and hopefully from 10 to 12 months, we will be having a vaccine. And many countries have invested in that. R&D investment is going on. So finally, a patented product will come out. So again, question the people talking about the public interest, how it is going to public interest, access to these medicines. So, and what are the exceptions to the access to these medicines? Whether compulsory licensing is going to be a tool to provide a cheaper vaccines to fight COVID, cheaper medicines to help COVID-infected patients. So everything, connected with economics, trade, commerce. Once they start, the robust generic industry, which has taken birth due to our intellectual rights, intellectual property rights policy, which has promoted generic pharma industry in India, helped India to export paracetamol, the cheaper paracetamol, cheaper hydroxychloroquine medicines to more than 108 countries. So this is possible. We could do a medical diplomacy in sending these medicines because the industry, people talk about 50% of entire world's pharma industry is taken care of Indian pharma industry. So and the pharma industry means its contribution to our GDP, its contribution to employment generation, and in the contribution to cheaper access to medicines. These are all important aspects of intellectual rights, property rights policy, and its role in economic growth and economic development. So that is very, very important that intellectual property rights play a key role in economic growth. But economic students know that it is only one of the engines which is responsible for the economic growth. For economic growth of a nation, there are various other indicators are there. Intellectual property rights is not a sole driver of economic growth. So I'm again saying intellectual property rights, it's not a sole driver of economic growth. There are various other tools and then engines are there. One is maintaining macroeconomic stability. That is very, very important for any nation. Then followed by quality of governance. So good governance. It also plays major role in improving the economic growth and economic development. And then comes rule of law. Rule of law is very, very important for the economic growth. Then comes the quality of infrastructure facilities you have all over the country. So business development, business environment, economic growth, and the trade and commerce within the country, and then inviting the multinational firms to come to India and participate in Make in India happens only because you provide quality infrastructure facilities to these companies. So that is also very, very important. And also the kind of education you have, education policy you have, education institutions you have. No, you have a Sharda University, it's a private university, a recognized university, doing a great role in imparting education. It must be having various 15 to 20 schools and imparting various subjects. It's already a popular university. I understand that it attracts more than 40 to 45 students every year who come from abroad to study in that university. Like this, there are various universities which attract foreign students. Now, India is becoming hub of education because of its standards it has set in the education. So that is also important for economic growth, and also the providing research and innovation facilities for creation and innovation, which play key role in intellectual property rights. And another important thing is productivity. The labor productivity also in one of the engines, the kind of labor laws we have and all that. So interplay of all these factors play a key role, along with the kind of strong regime of intellectual property rights we have. So this was recognized by the Indian government. So if you know that we have already have very strong intellectual property rights legislations, whether it is industrial property legislations or copyright related rights laws. So whether it is a patent law or industrial design law or trademark law, we have very stronger laws, and all these laws are in total compliance with the international treaties and international conventions pertaining to the intellectual property rights. So that it is trade related aspects of intellectual property rights agreement of WTO, which India became member from 1995. And all laws, all intellectual property laws are total compliance with the minimum standards and principles of TRIPS agreement. Similarly, Indian laws are totally in harmony with various intellectual property conventions and treaties like Paris Convention for Industrial Property Rights, or Berne Convention for Artistic, Literary and Artistic Works, or the WIPO Internet Treaty. India not only amended its copyright law in 2012, and it has harmonized its provisions with the WIPO Copyright Treaty and WIPO Phonograms and Performances Treaty, which extended copyright protection to the digital environment and online networks. So these are the important things. And also India is a member of Patent Cooperation Treaty, which facilitates international patent filings. And India is a member of Modern Protocol. Again, it facilitates international filing of trademark applications. So India is on par with the standards, international standards in intellectual property rights regimes. So in order to reflect this, we made a lot of policy changes, because policy making is an iterative process, which has to address the interest of various stakeholders, and also contribution of these IP industries to the GDP of the country, and contribution of these IP industries. So creation of economic growth, creation of employment, and then protection of countries' interests, and protection of countries' IP creators, IP owners, and also protection of public interest by providing cheaper access to medicines, access to knowledge, access to educational material, access to entertainment. So these are all important policies of Government of India, while accepting and while introducing the minimum standards of international conventions and international treaties of intellectual property rights, and bringing them in the national legislations. So if you remember, when Make in India program was announced by Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji, from the first address to the nation from the Red Fort, while giving address to the 15th August speech, he made a clarion call for Make in India. He asked various countries, foreign countries and multinational corporations, come to India and start manufacturing in India. So the main policy of Make in India is to make India a manufacturing hub. How is it possible to make India a manufacturing hub in the world? So now many countries are leaving China, and then India is taking that opportunity and inviting them to come to India and make in India. So already this call has been accepted by many companies. So iPhone, Samsung they opened Asia's largest manufacturing units in Bangalore. And in 2014, there were only 15 mobile manufacturing units. Now there are more than 500 mobile manufacturing units in various hubs in India, whether it is Bangalore or Delhi or Mumbai or any other important manufacturing place in India. So India has been successfully inviting multinational corporations to come to India and start their manufacturing. So how is it possible? It is possible when we have a strong IP law regime. So that is possible, and then only the foreign investment happens, and then India's promotion to the research and development, innovation. These are all important things. So considering these things, India started focusing on revising its policy on foreign direct investment. The FDI policy took a lot of changes 2014 to make in India policy a success. If you see, lot of products were allowed from the automatic route. FDI in automatic route was allowed in 2014 onwards. So now, if you see the FDI in India for last 3 years, it's a total change. 42 million US dollars to 49 million US dollars, and 60 last year is really most successful 65 million US dollars it has reached. So it is possible because of various factors, the interplay of various factors, among them the strong intellectual property rights regime and the promotion of innovation and research and development, also very, very important. If you look at the document, the policy document Government of India released in 2016, that is National Intellectual Property Rights Policy. So what was the need for introducing such a policy when we already have strong IP laws, IP legislations, which are in total harmony of the TRIPS agreement and various intellectual property conventions and treaty which India is a member? All minimum standards have been satisfied and included. And in fact, while harmonizing with the TRIPS agreement, India used all the flexibilities given in the treaty. Flexibilities are the legal tools which gives open-ended language, which gives a leeway for the sovereign governments to introduce IP legislations, considering their technological, socio-economic, educational environment in the country. So these flexibilities have been maximum utilized by India, whether drafting the patent legislation or trademark legislation or copyright legislation. So our entire policy, the IP policy, is driven by the flexibilities given in the TRIPS agreement. So when Indian delegation participated in the Marrakesh agreement, which finalized the establishment of World Trade Organization, India played a key role in protecting its interests, along with the other developing countries and least developing countries, introducing these legal tools in the drafting of various articles of the TRIPS agreement. So how it has helped India. If you look at the whether it is stronger laws only help in improving our FDI, improving our research and development, improving our economic growth. It all depends on how you draft your IP laws and manage them, and also effectively enforce them when counterfeiting or piracy or illegal imports happen. So that is very, very important. So despite our laws are there, so we wanted a vision, we wanted a mission for intellectual property rights regime. So that is very, very important, which sets a list of objectives which drives our intellectual property rights regime, strengthening various industries, strengthening creators, strengthening right holders, and and improving the economic growth and also the employment generation. So inviting investment in India. So India has become one of the leading FDI countries in the world because of various factors I told you, economic engines, which our economic policy, macroeconomic policy center around, of course, the intellectual property legislations and the intellectual property policy. So in what our national intellectual property policy talks about, the motto of the policy is Creative India and Innovative India. So creation and innovation should be help in sustainable development. So if you look at the World IP Day motto of this year, suggested the theme of the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO's World IP Day, which was celebrated on 26th of April. Innovation for a green future. So IP creations, IP innovations, IP R&D, research and development, invention should promote green innovation, green future, sustainable development. That's very, very important. And then whether it is a climate, it should address the climate change factors. It should address the issues of access to medicine, and it should address the access to the educational material. Now, and also the new disruptive technologies which are coming, whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it is blockchains, whether it is the big data or 3D printing or industry 4.0 manufacturing, which has introduced machine to machine manufacturing, which is going to become an Internet of Things, which is going to be a new, which is going to start a new global business environment, and also driving the customers, driving the consumers to enjoy the benefits of IP creations, and also the importance of protecting the various important brands already existing in the market, going to be introduced in the market, and how the IP laws are going to protect this. That's what the National Intellectual Property Rights Policy of India talks about. So it says that the policy should promote the interests of right owners, creators, and various industries involved in that, and then introduction of access to and then maintaining and promotion of access to cheaper medicines or access to education, and focus on innovation, R&D development, science and technology research. So all these things the national IP policy talks about. So and contribution of intellectual property rights to the growth of GDP is very, very important. I give you few examples. You take creative copyright industries. WIPO suggests a study to many member nations. So how the contribution of creative copyright industries, it is the music industry, it is the broadcasting industry, the film industry, and the publishing industry, and software industry. So their creativity, their contribution for employment generation and sustainability, and also the contribution of these industry to the GDP. So if you look at, I saw a study of group 8 countries, developed countries. The copyright industry's contribution in the G8 countries, from Japan to United States, it varies from 2% to 8% in the patent, and 6 to 10% in the copyright and creative industries. So if you take example of United States, the entire patent protected multinational corporations and then various um, creative industries of copyright, total contribution of patent and copyright to US GDPs comes around in 17.3%. That's what the study says. So how important to have a strong IP regime, it says. So the industry which gives not only the various creative products to the society, which improves the life of the people, it improves the consumerism, because it's going to give us a lot of products, and also which life uh, is better. And, if you look at the brand management through the trademark protection, I'll give you an example of Germany. Germany, if you see the manufacturing industries, especially the branded items, play a key role in the entire market of Germany, 22%. And the export of this trademark protected brand, the total exports of Germany come to 20%. So, this is very, very important, that the contribution of this IP regime to German economy is somewhere around 7%. And so, the importance of IP in economic growth has been recognized, and the trade and commerce, it's been recognized. That is the reason why in WTO agreements, the TRIPS agreement was included. So all intellectual property rights are inextricably interlinked with the trade, commerce, and economic growth. That is the reason why not only the minimum standards were introduced, with flexibilities, of course, considering the importance of socio-economic and technological development of the developing countries and least developed countries. Uh, and, uh, and it also, post time in the TRIPS agreement, importance has been given uh, to the enforcement of intellectual property rights, which hitherto was not covered in any in a substantial way, which TRIPS has covered in any international treaty or convention. The reason behind, because the stronger enforcement is important for protecting the economic growth and the contribution of intellectual property rights industries to the GDP of the country. That is the reason. Not only that, the TRIPS agreement introduced the dispute settlement council. So in case of any issue, so the matter has to go to the dispute settlement council, and then which the settlement decided by the council is going to be the final. So whether it is stronger IP laws, whether the minimum standards of the TRIPS, for the better economic growth of the country. If you look at the Article 1 of the TRIPS agreement, it talks about the member states implementing the minimum standards and principles of the TRIPS agreement mentioned, whether it is for the patents, copyright, industrial design, geographical indication, so on and so forth, and enforcement of the enforcement provisions mentioned in the TRIPS 41, Article 41 onwards. And also, it talks about first time international agreement, intellectual property rights agreement, competition. So promotion of competition and any abuse of intellectual property rights, any stifling the competition in the market, which is against the growth of IP regime and IP industries, which again it is against the interest of economic growth. So a healthy competition in the market, allowing the competitors to exist, the intellectual property rights regime which promotes the competition, which does not promote the abuse of intellectual property rights. We should not promote the monopoly and promote competition. That's what the Article 40 of the TRIPS agreement mentions. Again, it's a key aspect of intellectual property rights for the growth of the economy. And then there are two principles which helps understand the importance of TRIPS in context of developing country like India and other least developing countries. The very principles of the TRIPS agreement mentioned in the Article 7. What does it talks about? It talks about the promotion of intellectual property rights for technological development. It should not come in the way of the socio-economic, technological development, and also public interest in these developing and least developing countries. So there should be a balance of recognition of the right holders and public interest. It talks about. Similarly, if you see the obligations mentioned in the Article 8, it talks about promotion of public health, promotion of nutrients, promotion of technological development, and also the public interest should happen as per the balancing of intellectual property. So balance is very, very important. It's a stronger laws should be there, protecting the interest of the creators and IP owners, and also protecting the public interest by way of providing access to cheaper medicines, access to educational material, access to knowledge, and access to entertainment. These are all key for economic growth, and also key for innovation, key for further research and development, and key for further IP growth and IP creation, which play important role in employment generation and economic growth. So, and also it invites more investment, so more trade and commerce, and then more technology transfer agreements. All this happen when you have intellectual property regime respecting the intellectual property rights, giving a proper, adequate protection, effective maintenance, efficient management of rights. So these are the things very, very important for the growth of economy, and this is what IP contributes to the economic growth. If you look at the Indian context, so how IP laws have been tailored to promote economic growth, promote the protection of creators, protection of right holders, and also the public interest aspect of access to medicines, access to knowledge and education. I just briefly explain how our patent policy was introduced in India to achieve these objectives. When um, uh, um, before independence, when British introduced the patent laws, it was in interest of their pharma companies and their IP creating countries. So that is the reason why when British introduced the Patent and Design Act in India, it recognized product patents, a registration of product patents, and also process patents, because it was very important for the British to protect their industries at home in UK, their pharma industry, their other creative industries, other IP industries. But when India got independence, India knew that medicines were very expensive and access to cheaper medicines is important. It wanted to introduce a regime of pharma manufacturing in India. That is only possible when we have a friendly patent law approach, which is in harmony with various international conventions and treaties which India was member. So, considering it to change the patent policy, India appointed two committees. One is the Patent Committee to review the patent policy in India, followed by the Iyengar Justice Iyengar Committee, which considered the recommendation of Patent Committee and introduced and various recommendations which were recognized by the government of India. And when Patent Act 1970 was introduced, it was totally access to medicine friendly, and which show growth and development of Indian generic medicine industry. That is possible because we simply close the gate for product patent and we recognize only registration of process patents. Of course, product patent regime came back and India became TRIPS member in 1995. And then several eyebrows raised how our pharma industry is going to be protected. So it is the flexibilities introduced in the TRIPS agreement which have been imported by us and harmonized with the TRIPS provisions with our patent provisions and the Indian legislation, which help our pharma industry to go. Today, we are one of the strongest. Most of the 50% world generic medicine produced in India, and the comparative advantage we have. And again, I'm repeating, India could, help more than 108 countries by exporting its paracetamol and hydroxychloroquine recently with the decision of government in India, COVID in affected countries, because it is the robust generic pharma industry we have, courtesy the patent policies, patent provisions we have. So what are the important tools, legal tools, which helps Indian patent industry to grow and contribute to our economic growth, contribute to our employment generation? First and foremost thing is recognizing evergreening of patents in India. The provision section 3D, which does not recognize new form of old medicines to be patented, and extending the patent of existing medicines. It is because of section 3D, which was drafted by the Parliamentary Standing Committee when 2005 patent bill was introduced after brainstorming with various IP experts and then legal experts. We could protect our generic industry because, and if evergreening happens, you can't have a biosimilar or bioequivalent medicine to be introduced by the generic industry. And then second thing we introduced, that not recognizing the TRIPS plus element, that is patent linkage. So many IP experts and legal experts try to interpret the section, Article 28 and Article 39.3 that patent linkage exists in TRIPS agreement, and India should introduce in Indian laws. So what exactly the patent linkage, how it is harmful to our generic industry, which once it is introduced, how it is going to impact our economic growth. So once a patent is granted, the clinical trials happens and everything, the data is with them. So any generic medicine of which generates, which innovates and invents a biosimilar, bioequivalent medicine will go for the marketing and approval. It can't get if a patent linkage exists in Indian regime, because already there is a patented medicine which is with all clinical trial and marketing approval available in India. So no generic medicine can enter market as long as the patent is not expired. So India does not recognize as that. Some attempt was made, Bayer versus Union of India case in Delhi High Court, which tries to read a so-called harmonious reading of Drugs and Cosmetic Act provisions with the Patent Act provision that there indeed a patent linkage exists in India. This theory was trashed by the Delhi High Court that there is no patent linkage in India. It is a helpful thing for the growth and sustaining of a generic industry, which is contributing hugely to the economic growth of the country, and also access to cheaper medicines in India. This is very, very important. And also another tool which helps in India is introduction of international exhaustion in Patent Act. That is, if I'm correct, is Article Section 102. Which is in harmony with the Article 6 of the TRIPS agreement. The flexibility is given in the Article 6 of the TRIPS agreement. It says that the country can introduce either international exhaustion or a regional exhaustion or a national exhaustion. So we introduce international exhaustion because it helps parallel import of the cheapened medicine into India. So that is very, very important for us. So it also, such things not only provides cheaper medicines to our Indian people, it also creates a parallel industry to the existing manufacturer of pharma products, and also employment generation and contribution of it to our economy. This is very, very important step we have taken. And one more thing is, we do not recognize the data exclusivity regime which has been introduced and interpreted in a wrong manner, which is again the TRIPS plus element which has been attributed to interpreting the Article 39, paragraph 3 of the TRIPS agreement. So protection of undisclosed information, which Article 39 talks about. Para 3 talks about the data pertaining to has to be protection. So protection of data. So it doesn't talk about giving the 5 years extra by protecting the introducing the data exclusivity regime of the clinical data submitted to the at the time of marketing approval by the patented product companies, pharma product companies. So the data exclusivity regime varies from different countries. US may be 5 years, EU may be 8 years, and some elsewhere it may be 10 years. So India doesn't recognize that. India says that any misappropriation of and the clinical data in an illegal manner, in unauthorized manner, is an infringement on that's what we product. If any generic company legally researches and with its innovation comes with a biosimilar, bioequivalent, so data exclusive regime can't disallow entering of these generic medicines into market. So and there is a third kind of interpretation, that is a compensation regime many countries have introduced after interpreting the Article 39.3, that I know the original patent owner may be compensated with some license fee by the generic product company, but we don't recognize that. Neither we recognize the compensation regime, nor we recognize the data exclusivity. We simply say that any misappropriation illegally, it's not allowed. So patent and the data is protected in such a manner. So it is very, very important for the access to cheap medicines, the growth of industry. It's a huge generic industry in India, and the way it is contributing to our economic growth and providing cheap medicines in India. It's a very good policy which India has recognized. This has been iterated and recognized in the national IP policy, which was released in 2016. So all these things promote to the economic growth of the country. So these policies are very, very important. Again, if the protection of our pharma industry is one of the key factors of the patent policy, another issue in the patent policy is protection of our IT industries. So if you look at the Article 27, so what is the subject matter of patenting? So Article 27, para 1 clearly says, so patent shall be granted, whether it is a product patent or process patents, in all fields of technology which has a novelty, which promotes inventive step, and which has industrial application. Three tests are important for getting a patent registered. So IT, the software, a computer software, is one form of technology. So obviously it should get a patent protection. But Indian patent law in section 3K, it's clearly mentioned that computer program per se is not an invention, it's not a patentable subject matter. This decision has been taken to protect our IT sector, IT industry. So the how Indian software, Indian computer software is protected then. Again, it is another flexibility in the TRIPS agreement. The Article 10 of the TRIPS agreement says, in the copyright chapter, it says that computer program per se, along with the source code and object code, is a literary work as per the Article 2 of the Berne Convention. So this is very, very, what does Article 2 of the Berne Convention say? That literary works, original expression in any form, in any manner, it talks about. So writing of a program code and source code in a computer language is one of the forms, is one of the expressions. That is the reason why it is a literary work. So computer program is a literary work. It is given copyright protection, but not it's an invention, so it's not given patent protection. Why this decision has been taken by India, using these flexibilities to promote our IT industry, because copyright protection helps to re-engineering and then coming out with the new software, innovative software product. And if a patent regime protects the software, and it is not possible to do the re-engineering, so copyright allows that. So we have a comparative advantage in the IT industry in the world, apart from the generic pharma industry, because of our patent policy protecting the generic pharma industry and protecting the IT industry. So because of this, our these two industries have contributed immensely to the economic growth, and immensely contributed immensely to the GDP of the country. These are the two issues of very, very important, how patent regime help in the economic growth of India. So if you look at the entire growth scenario of India after liberalization introduced, economic liberalization introduced in 91 onwards, until recent times, India was one of the fastest growing in terms of GDP in entire world. It was GDP was hovering around 7 plus. Unfortunately, because of the world recession, and unfortunately because of the attack by the COVID-19, so not only India, the entire economies of the world are in the shutters. So hopefully, once this mishap we see through, and then we move forward, and then our all, not only the Indian economy, the world economy will improve, and the contribution of IP regime will play a key role in employment generation and the promotion of economic growth. That's very, very important. So, and one of the items which IP policy, the IP regime, IP legislations protect is research and development and innovation in India, creativity and promotion of innovation in India. So, what is our contribution to science and technology, research and development? So, in India, people talk about comparing Indian budget that is hovers around. It has been increasing. Contribution to R&D in India, science and technology R&D has been increasing for the past so many years, but it constantly between 0.6 to 0.7 of GDP. And it is because of its only government contribution and public sector contribution. Unlike other countries where contribution of R&D, a contribution of R&D, it's something around 6 to 7. We can't compare with them because the huge private sector multinational corporations investing in the R&D. That's not happening in India. So hopefully we'll improve that. That's what the policy paper of Niti Aayog mentioned in a press note last year. If you look at the press note, which is available in the Press Information Bureau, the idea is to bring India and R&D levels up to 2% of the GDP. So the promotion of research development, promotion of innovation play key role in bringing investment, and and also the kind of strong IP laws promoting and protecting these innovations, these products of these R&D research and innovation play key role in contribution of this to economic growth. This is very, very important. And already talked about the FDI investment, how India is improving. India is one of the key hubs for the FDI investment. And recently, it has been growing 42 million US dollars to 49 million dollars, and then 65 million US dollars is the latest data available. And then these are all happening despite a lot of misinformation spread by one of the reports, which is generated under the name of Super 301 report by the USTR in the United States. Sorry, it mentioned India is under the priority watch list because our IP laws and regulations not in harmony with the international standards. So it is unfortunate that people do not understand simply that Indian laws are totally in harmony with the minimum standards of the TRIPS agreement of WTO and all the other international IP treaties and conventions India is a part. So why this divergence is there in the convergence? There are 190 countries which have recognized the TRIPS agreement. Still, there is a divergence in IP laws. It is because of the flexibilities. Flexibilities allow the developing countries and least developing countries to have their own IP regimes as per the legal tools provided by the flexibilities. Flexibilities provided in TRIPS are two types. One is clearly mandates what regime you should have. whether you should have a software patent regime or patent or software is protected by the copyright. It is clearly mentioned. This flexibility is clear. Just like Article 71 says, either you have patent regime or you have a copyright regime for protection of software as per the Article 10. But there are open-ended languages the flexibilities talk about. I gave you example of Article 39.3, which talks about protection of undisclosed information. There are three interpretations. The one interpretation is the data exclusivity. Second interpretation is the compensation regime, and then third interpretation is what India calls that misappropriation of data, clinical data, which was submitted at the market approval of the patent. So, and then we have Article 6, which again interprets the exhaustion into international exhaustion, regional exhaustion, and national exhaustion. So these flexibilities provide different IP regimes in different countries. Look at our own IP regime. In patent, we have international exhaustion. That is in Article the Section 102. If you look at the Trademark Act, Section 33, Para 3, which recognize international exhaustion in the trademark, this was recognized by the division bench of the Delhi High Court in Samsung case, which is under challenge in the Supreme Court. The matter has to be decided by Supreme Court whether it is an international exhaustion or national exhaustion. But all IP experts believe that in trademark there is an international exhaustion. But it is only in copyright there is a national exhaustion. So international or regional exhaustion is not recognized. And so different things we have introduced the different product to be protected in a different manner. So there is a divergence in the convergence of the various laws of the countries which are already members of the TRIPS agreement, because they consider the social, economic, technological development existing in the country, their national interest, their public interest, their economic interest, they have to protect. That's why we have a lot of differences despite these countries are members of one convention, one treaty, or one agreement. This is very, very important. So if USTR of United States 301 report brings India every year religiously in the priority watch list, how India is the hub of FDI, is gaining more than $60 million per year. So Indian laws are not as per the international standards, and there are weak IP regime. How investment is coming to India? So this is a question always went unanswered at the negotiating table. So and then if Indian laws are weaker, and then Indian laws are damaging the trade and commerce, their IP interests, why Indian laws are not challenged before the Dispute Settlement Council of the TRIPS agreement in the World Trade Organization till now? Why last 15 years India has been put in the priority laws? Why Indian laws have not been challenged there? If it is the economic against economic interest of a particular country, economic interest of the products of their patents, a process of the patents, or their creative industries, their film industries, etc. So all this is a shop. So Indian laws are in total compliance with the international conventions. We again repeat this again and again. So this interpretation has to go. So finally, if you look at the kind of patent filings and trademark filings and design registrations happening, it's growing every year. Recently, the Indian Patent Office, Indian Trademark Office addressed the issue of pendency. They have recruited more examiners to help they reduce the pendency and reduce the delays in registration. And then patent office has recognized the concept of PPH, that is patent prosecution highway. Now, if this agreement has been signed with Japan recently, the patented registration granted in the examination done in the Japanese patent office can be recognized in India and expedite the process of patent registration in India, because we need not go into the rigmarole of examination and taking longer time in examining the patent. So, while introducing the PPH regime in India, recognizing it, we are not compromising with our patent laws and various tools, legal tools introduced. For instance, we are not going to accept evergreening of patent. We are not going to dilute the Section 3D, which rejects the evergreening of patents. That is very, very important thing one should recognize. So while improving the patent processes, patent examination, and reducing dependency in the patent offices, this step is necessary, which the government of India has rightly introduced that. And then these are all the important things, issues I wanted to cover in my talk. Now I end my talk here, and I request Professor Kulshestra and Dr. Lipika to take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot for such an elaborate, in-depth, and enriching discussion, sir. I am sure all of us who have participated and joined this webinar are better off on this topic after your in-depth views, sir. So now,
yes, very like encyclopedia of knowledge. Wonderful.
sir, I was
Wonderful.
noting down the points and was thinking of summing them up, but I think it's difficult to sum up everything what you
Wonderful.
stated. So now I'll just keep the session open for questions, sir. I have few questions. I'll just read out the questions to you for your response, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir, the first question is from Preeti Saxena, Professor Preeti Saxena. She is asking how far India has been able to utilize its IPR of traditional knowledge in furthering its economic growth.
Yeah, it's a very good question, which I somehow dropped out due to paucity of time, and I've taken longer time in explaining various issues. And thanks, Professor Saxena, bringing this issue of traditional knowledge. You know, if you look at the Indian Patent Act, the Section 3P does not recognize granting patent to traditional knowledge products. So our Biodiversity Act also recognizes this. India is a member of Convention of Biodiversity. So we have developed one traditional knowledge digital library, and to discourage patenting traditional knowledge products like which we fought fiercely, and then try to invalidate the patent granted to turmeric, patent granted to neem, or other traditional unknowledge thing. And then we we have recognized three principles, that is the prior informed consent, and sharing with traditional knowledge holders, and the benefit sharing. These are the principles which have been included in the Biodiversity Act, which have been mentioned in the Convention of Biodiversity. When these traditional knowledge things are exploited commercially, the contribution has to go to percentage decided by the Biodiversity Board. It should go to the original owners of this traditional knowledge. So that is very, very important. So in this way, the Biodiversity Act and the patent disclosure mechanism, and prior informed consent, and access to benefit sharing. All these things contributed to the traditional knowledge industries and their contribution to the economic growth.
Thank you
And
for your response.
international level also, there is an international intergovernmental committee which has held more than 45 meetings for so many years. But every time the document is changing with the pressure of multinational companies and developed countries. Coming to the IP protection, they want stronger protection. They want to go TRIPS plus. They try to indulge in a trade and a TPP agreement, Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, and India went out of the RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic um, um, treaty agreement with the ASEAN countries as trade partners. I was a part of negotiation for the 5 RCEP meetings. India finally went out because it simply did not recognize the element of protection of traditional knowledge. For copyright, patent, trademark, design, they want a stronger laws. The moment we mention about traditional law, they don't recognize this. They think that their multinational companies have every right to do the biopiracy and make money. So this we always try to stop to protect our interests, our traditional knowledge communities, and so that's what the policy of India. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you for your response, sir. The next question is from Rupendra Yadav, sir. Sir is asking, does IPR leads to abuse of dominance and it reduces its competition?
Yeah. No, this has been recognized, already mentioned in my talk, that Article 40 of the TRIPS agreement clearly mentions that intellectual property protection should not lead to abuse of intellectual property rights, and it should not stifle competition. Yeah, now we have a very robust competition law regime. We have a Competition Act introduced, Competition Commission established as per the Competition Act 2000. So if you look at the Section 3, Paragraph 5 of the Competition Act, so whatever it says that whatever IP rights provided in the patent, trademark, industrial design, or geographical indications, and beyond someone try to use beyond these exceptions and rights, somebody try to misuse their IP ownership, IP rights, abuse this, and then try to introduce monopolistic licensing, or and try to introduce various dominant, abuse their dominant. It is not allowed, and Competition Commission has come down heavily in that in this aspect. There are various case laws available. Even recently, there was a question of jurisdiction of Competition Commission over the IP issues. I give you an example of Micromax issue of standard essential patents. When the question of standard essential patents issue came, the matter went to the FRAND licensing, and issue came when the Delhi High Court in this matter clearly mentioned that the Competition Commission does have jurisdiction to deal with the abuse of intellectual property rights happening in this matter. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Professor Neeru. She is asking, I just want to confirm, when product patent has already spread its wings worldwide, what is the relevance of process patent?
Professor Neeru Nakra, I think. Namaskar ji, madam. Thanks for this question. Yeah, there are various processes. It's very important to recognize that, and there are patents granted, but the various process and that's why the process regime still continues, even though process leads to product at the time. End product is a different, but the way you arrive at a product, the end product, uh, um, it may be a different processes. For example, remdesivir is medicine which is floated by the Gilead, and then that one process they are following. Let us say process X, which gives to that COVID medicine remdesivir, and a generic company comes out with a similar product in a different process. So that is very important to have two regimes to recognize. That's what with my minimum understanding of this, I can say this. Yeah. Next question.
So next question is from a LLM student Bongani. He is saying, I understand that IPR rights are negative rights and exclude others. When do their use raise competition concerns?
No, IPR rights, it's a misinterpretation that IPR rights are negative rights. Intellectual property rights, the basically gives incentives to the creators for creating more and innovating more. But there is a limitation on that, the term of protection, this exclusive license given. For example, exclusive right given. For example, patent, it is 20 years, and the copyright is life of the author plus 60 years. So it is not a negative right. So because he is the one is a intangible property, creation of mind. Yeah, he is the one because he has to exploit commercially, and such a limitation is there, and the term during that time he will exploit, whether he may give an exclusive license or not an exclusive license or a sole license, or he may put it under the Creative Commons or open source licensing. So it is for him to decide, and once it enters public domain, and anyone can grab that and then commercialize it. But during the period, the term of that intellectual property rights, he should not abuse. That's what the competition law says. So whatever rights recognized by the intellectual property legislation, only that extent it is allowed. If you go beyond that, abuse those rights, that is negative. Then negativity starts from that, because it is creating a kind of monopoly, stifling the competition, abuse of that monopoly, and then is anti-competitive, indulgence in the anti-competitive practice. That's what is discouraged by the competition law as per the section 3.5. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Next
you, sir.
question.
One last question I would like to say, that is from Professor Pradeep Kulshrestha.
Yeah.
Please elaborate on issue of process and product IPRs.
Thank you, sir. The product and process patents were recognized under the initial patent law when was introduced. But in the already explained you in the 1970 Patent Act de-recognized the product patent, because it giving a product patent became difficult for us get a license to manufacture the similar products in India, and that is the reason why it was not allowed under the 1970 Patent Act, and the only patenting and registration of process patents was allowed. So only after the TRIPS agreement obligated India to reintroduce a product patent regime, and then we using the various TRIPS flexibilities, we protected our generic medicine industry, as already explained during my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We have already taken a lot of time of yours.
Thank you
Now
very
I
much.
would like to propose a vote of thanks, and just before vote of thanks, though it is not possible, as I stated earlier, to sum up what you stated, because you have shared so much of knowledge with us extensively, and we are really thankful, and I'm sure everyone enriched after the end of this webinar. I'll just briefly I'll just take some bullet points on which you touched upon. First and foremost, those who joined late, I just want to say, sir has elaborated in detail about the patents and their value with regard to economic growth of any nation, and what is the status of patents with regard to pharmas at present, which is the need of time in COVID era. Plus, sir has touched upon how India is becoming manufacturing hub due to Make in India. Then there is a need to have, why there is a need to have a IP policy. Sir touched upon there is a need to have to promote research and development in the area. And then sir also discussed very clearly that the IP policy concentrates on creative, innovative and sustainable India. Sir has also discussed in detail example of Germany, how Germany is building on economy on basis of the trademark branding. Then sir has also discussed that there should be a balance of right of a user and a creator, what is monopolization, and what is parallel imports extensively. Sir discussed so many things, so as I said, I will not be able to sum up, and in the end I am indebted to sir, and I on behalf of the School of Law and everyone who has participated in the webinar, with folded hands, I would like to thank sir, and we are really grateful, sir, for joining in and taking out time from your extremely busy schedule and enlightening us. Thank you so much, sir. Dean sir, would you like to add?
Yeah, I want to conclude with one remark by Dr. Neeru Nakra. She has written, "Thanks a lot, dear organizers, for creating a platform to be in touch with sanity in this unaccessed period of COVID-19." So thank you very much. That is also one of the objectives to keep ourselves sane. Thanks a lot.
And
Thank you very much, sir.
congratulations to Professor Kulshestra and Dr. Lipika Sharma. I think you should continue this platform, inviting more experts and then get connected with everyone. And thank
We
you very
have
much again for inviting me. And thanks to all who participated in this online talk. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very
so
much,
much,
sir.
sir. We'll bother you again after the
Okay.
lockdown is over.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for participating. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Miss Lipika, for beautiful moderation.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Bye everyone. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Happy weekend.